Hello, I'm Steve Lane. I'm a rock and roll musician, a rock and roll junkie, and a vinyl addict. Today, I'm going to be talking about how I saved $120 by switching to GEFFEN by buying Steely Dan's Can't Buy a Thrill, the non-UHQR version. Coming up. First off, I want to thank all of you that have taken the time to subscribe to me and to like me or to send a comment to me. You can also check me out on Facebook under Steve Lane Music. And I just have a lot of gratitude for you. Thank you so much for watching this. And thank you so much for taking the time to like and comment. If you haven't done so already, do me a favor, please hit that subscribe button. Please give me a little like. Just a little gesture like that really helps out the algorithms, and this channel's trying to grow. So I greatly appreciate your support thus far. Now, today we're talking about this album that I never really embraced until recently. Yes, I've had it before. I've only had it on CD. I bought the Citizen Steely Dan box set a long time ago, and it came out in the 90s. And that's really the only way I had it on CD, the whole album. Of course, I had the hits because I've had this double greatest hits. It's way long out of print on vinyl for quite a while. I got a good deal on it. And I've got their individual albums except for their first two. I've never had Countdown to Ecstasy, and I've never had Can't Buy a Thrill. So what I did was I compared it to the few tracks that I had on this. I compared it to the album that I have on the box set, and I also compared it to the greatest hits compilation that I have on CD. So I didn't really have a first pressing album to reference it with, but I never really wanted this album until recently anyway. I can tell you it sounds freaking awesome. Bernie Grunman did a fantastic job. He was in charge of the remaster. Oh my gosh. And it was remastered analog, and it was pressed on UHQR, the super duper hefty translucent audiophile vinyl crystal clear version, double 45. It's pretty awesome. I've seen it. I've held it in my hand. I did not buy it, obviously. But this one sounds great. It sounds really good. And yes, it's pressed off a DSD. Yes, it's got a digital step in it, a major one. And you know, I'm proud that I saved $120 this way. Yeah, it sounds phenomenal, I'm sure. And I've heard reviews of it. And I've heard reviews of this too. I'm happy with this. I'm very happy. Now, like I said before, I didn't grow up with this album. I had the 3 songs that I liked. I've had them on CD for years. I've had this album on CD for years off the Citizen Steely Dan box set. It sounds great. It sounds phenomenal, actually. Bernie Grunman did a great job on this, and this has been long awaited. We've been wanting some repressed Steely Dan albums for decades now, and they did a great job. The artwork is fine. It's faithful to the original. It's got the original gatefold, you got Skunk, and you got all the boys in here. I've listened to this over and over again quite a few times over the past few days because I wanted to prepare for this, what I'm gonna say here. And afterwards, I put on a recent pressing of Hotel California. This is the most recent pressing of it, and it was a huge disappointment. After listening to this for hours and hours straight, over and over again, then I put this on, it was like, wah, 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 wah. The big letdown. The mastering on this, it's all right. I don't know what they did. I know that they've got a Hi-Fi Hotel California coming out this year. Oh boy, that's gonna be welcome, because this recent pressing does not sound good. I'm probably gonna do a video on that one as well. This one, however, was so good, especially right off the bat. This sounds really, really good. Right off the bat, you get Do It Again. I mean, that's everyone's favorite Steely Dan song from the early days. Gosh, it sounds so good. It just sounds more, you can hear the instruments a lot more clearly on this. Hang on just a moment. I'll be right back. So right off the bat, Do It Again, everybody's favorite early Dan song. It sounds fantastic. I compared it to this greatest hits vinyl version over here. I compared it to my CD version. I even compared it to a downloaded version, an MP3. It sounds so much more warm. The channels are more separate. You can hear the instruments more clearly, and the bass, you can really hear Walter's bass just like bumping along. And yeah, I cranked up my sub just a little bit. I wanted to hear a little bit of the bass on this, and man, it's good. There is a huge difference between this and the old. I mean, granted, this is not a first pressing. Well, it might be, but this isn't a version taken from the first pressing of the actual album, but it still sounds really good. And then I compared it to the CDs, like I said, and there's just a big difference. There's a night and day difference. That song really hit me hard. And Dirty Work is now becoming my favorite song on the album. It's really good. I wasn't the biggest fan of David Palmer because I didn't think he fit with the band, and they obviously didn't either because he's only on a few songs on this album. But now that I listen to it over and over again like I have the past few days, it sounds great. It's such a good song, and I actually like his voice on that song now. I've accepted it. I actually like his voice on this album now, and it's taken me up till this point to say that because I was never really a big fan of good old Mr. Palmer. Kings is great. Midnight Cruiser sounds awesome. Only a Fool would say that. There might be a little, I can't tell if it's a defect or if I just didn't adjust my tracking properly, but it kind of skips over the first note, and I think it's just because there's so much fidelity when the song kicks in that it pops my needle out. So I tried a couple different settings, and I think I got it now, but I don't want to say it's a defect. I thought it was for a little while, but it's not. Midnight Cruiser had a little bit of distortion in one of the channels, but after I adjusted my tracking, I didn't really hear it as much anymore. So I'm going to say there was not a defect on this. But it is strange, I must admit, because all my other Steely Dan albums, I don't have Countdown to Ecstasy, I never have. All my other Steely Dan vinyls are all first pressings on ABC. Even this coveted Asia, I've got the AA press, and it sounds great, but this copy isn't so great. The pressing is phenomenal. It's the coveted first pressing of it, but it's kind of a beat up one, and I bought it years ago, and it was heavily discounted. So the one Steely Dan I might spring for on the UHQR would be Asia. I think it's probably the best album ever recorded, really. Having the GEFFEN on here is just so weird. It's so strange to see that. I mean, this is after MCA bought out ABC Records. I'm used to seeing the MCA on Gaucho and the CDs and stuff, but it's just strange seeing GEFFEN on a Steely Dan album. But whatever, they did a great job. It's their 50th anniversary edition, and there was no hype sticker on this. There was no marketing. There's no stamp anywhere on this that says, 50th anniversary edition. It's all right, though. It sounds great. And like I said before, I love this little gatefold. It's faithful to the original pressing. It's a great album. Reeling in the Ears sounds great. The guitars sound like they're right there in the room with you. I can really hear Elliot Randall cranking along on that. Fire in the Hole sounds good. Brooklyn sounds good. Again, I'm not the biggest fan of David Palmer, but it's growing on me, all right? His songs are actually growing on me. Change of the Guard sounds awesome, and I do like Turn That Heartbeat Over Again. I like David Palmer's vocals on that, and then you got Fagan and Becker and Palmer singing on that. You've probably seen videos on this album before, the UHQR reviews, this GEFFEN review. I'm sure you've seen them before. It's taken me a while to make this video because I've wanted to review this for a while. I've also wanted to listen to it for a long time and really get to know it. It is definitely worth it. It's worth the $30. I'm not gonna have to spend $150 on this album because it's never really been my favorite Steely Dan album. I am gonna get the Countdown to Ecstasy. It's coming out next week. I pre-ordered it at my local record store. And that's how I like to buy records. I try to stay local. Every now and then I had to get a Walmart album because they're the only ones that have that edition, like Marvin Gaye. And I believe it was Whitesnake too. Yeah, I've got a red colored vinyl limited edition that I can only get at Walmart as well. So every now and then, if I have to go big box, I will. But if I don't, if I can make a conscious effort not to, I'd rather go to the little guy, my local record stores. I'm in a smaller town in California, and there's 2 record stores nearby, and one of them's not so nearby, but it's worth it. This is some good stuff. I highly recommend it. If you have any doubts, don't. It sounds great. It beats the crap out of that vinyl release. It beats the CDs, it beats the current download. I mean, it is a really, really good sounding album. Yes, it's DSD, it's not all analog, that's why you spend $150. I don't mind spending $30 on this. I'm really glad I didn't get the UHQR version. I'm gonna hold out for Asia. That might be the only one I get. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this. I really appreciate you. Talk to you soon. Until next time, be cool and keep rocking.